Yo, what is up, y'all? I am DK Hammonds, and I am here with what I would consider the OG of social media church, social media communication, all the things. She is one of my muses. She's one of the people I follow when it comes to certain things happening in the industry as it relates to church and communication. She really doesn't need an introduction as it relates to this podcast. I want to introduce you to some, present to others, as we say in the local Baptist church. Katie Allred, come on, y'all show some love. Katie,
woo! Yeah, I appreciate the clapping. That's nice. I had a little something to it.
Yeah, I seen you on other places, and I don't like how they not enthused by talking to you. Like Katie is, she that lady.
Like, I appreciate it.
Yeah, she's that. People need to be more enthused when they are having a conversation with the OG. That's just my opinion.
I appreciate that. And maybe it's the energy I'm bringing. I don't know, like I'm pretty laid back. So maybe that's why. I don't know. But
nah. So Katie and I was talking a little bit off mic, and I think this is going to be a super important. I think all of them are important, but I think this is important for the next year. Many of us are in this industry, and we're always thinking, what's next? What's to come? And Katie and I are going to talk about how we see, how we're going to forecast 2025. What can we expect? What can we feel in the next year to come? So Katie, I'll pitch it right back to you. What are some things that you feel like we're going to be really into next year in 2025?
Yeah, I think there's a few things really. So I think number one is probably going to be obviously AI. I mean, okay. I don't know. You're probably talking about that way too much at this point, but
yep.
It's a drum that we're beating before 2020 about getting on the internet.
Come on. Well, that was just a hard play too. Like, hey, internet is coming. Y2K, yeah, that was a hard play.
And then once the pandemic happened, the church was like, oh yeah, I guess we got to get on the internet, And now like most churches are on the internet. So I think that's good. I think, there's a step further than that and being hybrid first and realizing like the internet and physical locations exist simultaneously. I think that's something that's happening as well. But AI being a big one, figuring out, how do we use AI to make ourselves more efficient? How can we make sure we're ethical? I think not being scared of it's going to be a big part of it.
Come on.
There's so many different platforms. Which one should we use? Like, which one should we pay for? A lot of that. And then, and I've made all those mistakes. So please ask me. So you don't have to spend and waste money and time like I have.
Let's get right into it then. I think, ChatGPT, when this podcast is dropping, has already dropped the $200 version of itself, which I think is only available for researchers and scientists. This is what I've read about it. That doesn't necessarily impact the local church per se.
No. So and also, like, I'm not sure you need that version. Yeah, as a church, I don't think you need the $200. I think you could probably live with the free version for the most part. Like, I do think the paid is nice because the history and like whatnot and getting to know you, but also like the paid gives you a little more privacy, so it's not training on your data. I think that's the thing. But the regular subscription, which is like $20 a month, is going to be like the best probably across the board. For most churches. And like, and it's one thing, like, it's so funny. I love ChatGPT and I was using it pretty exclusively until recently, and now I've really gotten into Claude.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. I was waiting for you to get there because I too have been tinkering with Claude a lot more than I do love ChatGPT because I can program my GPTs. I can do all of those things. And if I wanted to sell GPTs, I could sell them in my own private place. But the feel of Claude in terms of how it's producing information as it relates to copy, it's very different than ChatGPT. So share with the people the use of Claude and how they can use that in a social space.
Yeah, so Claude is just a better writer. in general. So if you're writing emails, if you're summarizing your sermons, if you're creating devotional content, if you're thinking through strategy or questions maybe you want to ask to get to a strategy, I think Claude is a good place to start. I do think though that like ChatGPT is so good at like producing quickly and then also like coming up with that actual strategy. Like, so taking the questions and putting it in ChatGPT, it's got a bigger breadth of knowledge, I think, than Claude does. But Claude, I think, is a little more human almost in a way. And also, I love the way it produces these things called artifacts.
Yes.
And it does make looking at it and reading the information a lot easier and more digestible. What's really great is like, you can ask Claude to like make a color palette and it will code a color palette and then show you the image of the color palette to the side in an artifact, right? Where you could ask ChatGPT to do that, but like it's going to give you a bunch of hex codes and not really show you the colors. And so it's usable, yeah, but it's not the best. Whereas Claude, yeah, you can get quite a bit more minutia into the details. So they're so different, right? Like I would prefer like ChatGPT. I can upload an image and be like, what does this image say? Or like, you know, out of all these products, which one should I choose to heal my wound? Like you can do that, you know, with ChatGPT. You can talk to it. You can't really do that. You can't be in the kitchen talking to Claude, you know? So they're different for different reasons. And, you know, Claude is similar price, $20 a month. I have them both. I use them both simultaneously. You know, if I don't like the way one's going, I'll go to the other.
Go right to the next.
Yeah. And then, you know, maybe it's the way I'm talking to it. But that's the thing. Like, I think people think, oh, I've got to memorize a bunch of prompts or whatever. No, it's more train of thought, like, or even better word is probably chain of thought. Like, how do you think about when you're creating like an email? What do you think about first? Like for me, I think about what my subject line is going to be. And then I'm like, okay, so let's generate a subject line. Well, what's this email about in the first place? Okay, well, let me tell it, hey, I need to come up with a subject line for this event. This is what we're doing, and I want it to be clickable. Like I want people to click on it. And so, you know, giving it that context really is probably the more important thing. I think a lot of people don't really know where to get started, and it's a lot easier than they think if they think of it as an intern that they hand something.
Yeah, no doubt. When you were saying prompts, I want to give our listeners today at least 4 things that will go into a decent prompt. I normally wouldn't do this, but I'm gonna do it on this. 4 things that I would do to start a prompt, or 4 pieces of my process. Number 1, role. What role do you want me to play as the GPT? Do you want me to be the social media manager? Do you want me to be the pastor? Do you want me to be the director of communications? What is the role, and what are some of those functions in said role? Helps you with role. Then if you want to be fancy, you would be like, what's the mission? What's the mission that I want to complete here? What's the thing that I want it to do for me to add to that particular prompt? Then you may be able to add, let's say, inspiration, some inspo that you want to throw in there. And then you can get into what task do you want for it to execute. Now, I have more written down. I may add that later, but I use that as the form to kind of start my prompting and get things going. So if I am a social media manager or a director of communications or somebody that's working in content, how would you create a prompt around that?
Yeah. Well, first I would tell ChatGPT and Claude, like you said, like, what is your role? Like, you are the director of communications at this church. Okay. Like, and don't say you are acting as, or you pretend to be. Yeah. Because apparently even that makes your prompts less powerful. So you want to like embolden the AI to be what you're wanting it to be. So, or even like, you may want it to be like a publicist, or you are a public relations expert, or you are a marketing expert. What would you do if you had to advertise this event coming up? And then it's going to ask you some questions, right? Like, okay, what about this? What about that? I like turning it around and say, okay, what do you need from me to make this better?
Yeah. Yep.
Because oftentimes I don't know where I'm starting or where I'm going. And so, but like I said, you got to give it a lot of context to produce what you're really wanting. And so, what I found is I upload a ton of docs. Like I'll upload PDFs that I have, Word documents, things like that from the event or from whatever I'm trying to advertise. And then I will work from that. So
that's good.
That way it knows where it's going, because otherwise it's like, I don't know, here, I'll just pull some generic information from the internet, which might be good, but really you need to like feed it so it knows, okay, we're going in this direction, or like, what's the date of this event, and those kind of things, because it doesn't know that much, right? It only knows as much as you're telling it. There used to be a thing I remember, and I did a computer science undergrad. Like, computers are only as smart as the user.
That's it.
And so you have to give it the context. Otherwise, like, I mean, yeah, it can produce like some fun stuff all on its own, like with you barely prompting it. But if you can really like get into the minutia of what you're doing and give it more, it's going to produce better results.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. If you guys are just now watching us, this is a Social Media Church podcast. I'm here with the OG Katie. If y'all don't know who the OG Katie is, you need to go look her up. Books, websites, blogs, the whole nine. She's done it probably 3 times over.
Appreciate it,
yeah, the wealth of knowledge, and I'm not just gassing you, I'm just telling you what I've seen. The wealth of knowledge with this young lady here is through the roof, and I always respect her work and hustle as it relates to Social Media Church. All right, so that's one. So that's a really good one. So AI is another one. Let me see. I think the reemergence of authenticity is coming back to us.
I don't think it ever left us.
Okay.
I think the problem is that we just haven't done it.
And here's what I mean. Like, I'm watching us go from the overproduced stuff
to the underproduced.
And some even this underproduced is like really outperforming the overproduced so much. Right. So you mentioned, hey, we've done this. It's been sitting here, and now we're just kind of picking it back up. Yeah. Tell me your thoughts about that for 2025.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more of that kind of content where we're just like actually just speaking to the audience instead of curating to the audience, or like pulling stuff and kind of producing it and making it seem professional, I guess. And so I do think we're going to see a lot more of that. Don't get me wrong. I think a professional video is great. There's no problem with that. But I do think, we're seeing a lot more of just, hey, inviting and being like real is working so much better. And then I think we're going to see a lot of like micro content, coming out of this. And AI is a part of that too, so you can use certain tools to like create those 30-second shots from your sermons and pull the best quotes and those kind of things. And all of that also, I think, leans into authenticity of, oh, well, this isn't a produced like sermon. It's just a piece of it, but you can see what it's actually like at the church and those kind of things, instead of like putting out a theater trailer essentially for the church.
Cinematic with all the cameras and all the things. So if I was a pastor, what's a way that we can project authenticity to the audience?
Okay, so actually, I'm going to turn it around and say that I don't think pastors should be the one doing it. I think your members should be the ones doing it. My pastor I used to serve under, he used to say the first Reformation was about giving the scripture back to the people, but the second Reformation will be about getting the ministry back to the people. And I think about that every day. And I think we're going to see a lot more community-driven content creation, whether that is member-created podcast or collaborative devotional writing, actually having community stories being shared instead of necessarily, here's the pastor talking to you, like, because that's overdone.
Agreed.
Also, like, it's not the church.
Agreed.
The church is not the pastor. I think that's been the hugest problem in the last 20 years for the church is the pastor-driven personality church. And so I think we're going to see a revival of just having people create the content. And I mean, that's like user-generated content, essentially, right? Like,
yep.
I think that's what we're wanting to see more churches do. But like, I've been banging that gong for like 10 years. Will it happen? I don't know, But I
think that it will. I've seen it kind of shift in both spaces where the story is starting to shift more to let's tell a story about the members, their experiences, their journey to get here, and less stories about pastor getting out of his car and slamming the door and walking up to the door. It's starting to be less and less of that and more focus on the people, the smiling faces that we see, the introduction, the hugs, the community, and all that kind of stuff. There are people making a general attempt at that. Now, would I like to see everybody take that lead? Absolutely, I would. Because I feel like in 2025, to your point, community is what we want to see, the smiling faces, the little children, the youth, the young adults, the older generation of people sharing their stories to us.
Right. And not just like stories about the church, or like the church. Like, we really just want to see and hear more about stories of life change and how God is moving in their lives. And in the life of the church, obviously, but like, I think having those individual stories will speak louder.
Yeah.
And do more for you in creating awareness in the community than posting a sermon clip.
No doubt. No doubt. Good stuff. Okay. So that's two.
I'm being harsh.
That's fine. We can take it all. Bring it to us. That's a few predictions.
That's rough.
It is rough. I know a pastor is going to struggle.
They're going to have feelings with me.
That'd be all right.
It's okay. They can bring them to me. That's
fine. You can bring them, but make sure you bring them in love. Because if you don't, I'm going to come look for you.
I mean, that's fine. Like, not everybody loved the prophets. Like, there was a little stuff going on around that. Anyway, okay, next thing. I got some other thoughts.
All right, let's hear. What's the next thought?
Well, I think we're gonna have to figure out accessibility in the church. So, like, multilanguage content delivery, closed captioning for all of our video content, and even for our like in live services. Figuring out like screen reader optimization for our websites. There's so many different things are legally required now too, not just for the in-person service, but for your website. And I think churches don't realize it because they think, well, we're a nonprofit, we'll be excluded or they won't come after us. And that's just not the case, like, at all. And the thing is too, is that, yeah, sure. I mean, there's legality, but also people deserve the dignity of being able to use your church's website the same way anybody else would. And so I think that's going to be a big problem and a big thing we're going to see a lot more out of. And figuring that out is going to be the next thing. So, like, conduct accessibility audits. There's plenty of ways to fix it. Obviously, you can come and talk to church communications if you want. We would love to help you. But I think that's going to be a big thing too.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. I have a friend who I purposely lean on when it comes to accessibility. Anybody deserves, as you mentioned, they should have the dignity to access the things that we have at any moment in any given time, whether it be somebody who may be differently abled or somebody who has a different situation going on. We should definitely be leaning our websites to be more open to those who operate that way.
Yeah.
So I agree. I 100% agree. He gets on to me. His name is Kyle. So if Kyle is watching this is Kyle gets on to me if something is not accessible. He's going to let me know. He's going to give me an earful. He's seminarially trained, and he's going to give me the right access. to ensure that we include everybody in the conversation when it comes to our website development. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's difficult, that's not a straightforward thing. You can't just fix that with coding. It's more intricate than just one thing. So definitely find an expert and lean into it for sure. And you might say, well, there's nobody at our church right now. Well, yeah, right now.
They're coming.
And so
think about it. They're not at your church, but this is a way. Would they be? This is the way that we bring them to the table equally. And if you don't have anything for them, why would they show up? Why would they want to? Yeah. All right. Yeah. Accessibility, AI, seeing more of community, less of senior leadership.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. There's my spiciness for today.
Oh, no. That was light work. That was light work.
That was enough. Spiciness.
That was light work. Okay. So let's see.
For one day, let's not get them too riled up.
They'd be fine. I like poking the bear anyway.
Yeah.
I would say another 2025. What a trend I want to see end.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see the repurposing of pastoral content for pastors' demise. I want to see that end.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've made a lot of money and clickbait off of it, and it just really brings a lot of eyeballs, but it also causes a lot of division in the body of Christ. And I do want to see that come to a screeching halt. In 2025.
Yeah, I think, with a grain of salt, I don't want it to be advertised, but also people need to be held accountable, right, for their actions.
Listen, I am for accountability. I am Mr. Matthew chapter 18. I am for accountability. What I am not for is us taking people to task for clicks and likes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm not for.
Yeah.
Because I don't win. Nobody wins with
that. So much as it is different websites. I'm not going to name these certain websites.
We won't.
They exist out there, and they're not. Yeah, that's not glorifying to anything. So
I want to see them come to an end. Probably sooner than later. Let's see. What about some of these new apps like Blue Sky and Threads?
Mm-hmm.
As it relates to church leadership, because now we have TikTok that is on the bubble fringe. We don't know if it's going to be in existence of 2025.
I know,
I have my thoughts about that.
I heard it was getting kicked out by the end of January.
Yeah, they make people too much money to get kicked out by the end of January. That's just my opinion. But
I guess we'll find out.
We're going to find out. But tell me some of the applications for 2025 that we need to be kind of paying attention to.
Yeah. Well, Blue Sky and Threads is cool, but I don't think that has anything to do with church. I think there's a lot of Theo bros out there on it. On X, right? And there's arguing about their platforms and
of course
why not? And not even theological things. They're just arguing about politics.
Yes.
And that's not fun for anybody.
Nope.
And so I don't know. I think it's fine, if you find community or those kind of things on there, but I don't know that your church necessarily needs to have a platform on any of those.
Gotcha.
Necessarily, sure, save your username, but I don't see a big, I don't know, unless you want to make it the one place that you put updates. You could do that. Sure. Every church does it differently. So I do think email and texting would probably get you further than than any of those. Honestly, all the above than social media. But I don't think you shouldn't have it. I think social media is an awareness platform, right? We're aware that now this thing exists. It's not going to usually take you any deeper.
Right. I think to your point, establish your handle.
Right.
For your church. And unless there's 1,000 people grabbing at this page, we're going to continue with the main big three that we have.
Get out of here.
You know what I'm saying? If I don't have that's just my thought process. If it's not 1,000 people grabbing at this page, I'm just going to put repurposed content there, and that's going to be the end of that. until there's 1,000, and then that's going to warrant me to have a conversation. But I do think that
if it's not extra work, then
absolutely,
used to it. But like if it's extra work, then nah, it's not worth it. I would even venture to say that TikTok may not necessarily be worth it right now, until this whatever is going on. Through. You know, especially if you haven't started.
Yes. I also think, you know, those new apps, you know, kind of get us away from the legacy apps. And I am pro legacy apps. Like Facebook is the juggernaut. And we try to get away from it as much as we can. Unfortunately, you cannot. It is here. It has deep roots. It is coming at you in every angle. So I think
it's, to me, it's the white pages, right? Like it's what the phone book was before.
Yep.
And so you can't really get rid of the phone book, right? Well, they used to think you couldn't get rid of the phone book, and then they did. So, I mean, I guess something else could come up and be the new phone book. For now, though, I don't think there's another phone book on Facebook.
No.
And
Facebook
Instagram.
And IG work those, which brings up the last thing with IG. Yeah. I seen the CEO talk about how important carousels are now. And the multi-use of carousels. There's one thing to just put up, you know, just 6 photos of the same. No, it's like video, photo, in that same thing. So
what about that? Yours starts on a different photo than the first one. It hardly ever starts on the first one anymore.
It doesn't. That's a good call out. It always starts somewhere else. Number one, and you just keep going. Yeah. That's good. That's that. I see what you did. You threw that one out there.
It just doesn't for the first one. So, like, if you're gonna do something, you got to make sure the context is understandable, regardless of what slide they're on. You know.
I do know. I hope y'all caught that, because I caught that, and that's good stuff.
DK.
No, I'm just gonna tell my team, hey, fix it. No condemnation for me. Hey, team, you read it, listen to this, and fix this. What she said, we need to do that. I thought that was a good idea. I mean, because normally when I'm creating carousels, I have my first thought and my second thought, my fourth thought, and now you came in and just wrecked my theology and say, but they normally start on the second page. They don't even start with page number 1. Who cares about page number 1? And I'm like, oh no. Yes.
Don't you get when people wreck your theology like that?
I love it.
I mean, I love it as well, but like it's like
take all the front pages out and just start with number 1, and we'll get there. We'll put the title somewhere else so we can get these carousels ready. So I think carousels are going to be a huge multi-use of carousels.
So images are still important, you know.
Absolutely.
I think that we lost that in 2024. We really went hard on video, which I don't think is bad. I just think that, like, the images are coming back. They're just in slideshow format. So, and maybe putting your video inside of that carousel, would probably be beneficial.
It would be. Katie, you've poked me in my eyes a couple times. Any final thoughts before we raise it?
You know, how about I tell the people where they can find me on the internet?
Come on, tell them.
No, I don't have any final wisdom really, other than, like, you know, just try things, and if it doesn't work out, that's okay. We're only here for a limited time, so have fun. Smile. Short
Go
time.
off.
All right, so if people want to find me, you can obviously find me on Church Communications, the Facebook group. You can go to churchcommunications.com. We do consulting and cohorts and all sorts of things for church communications. And then the big thing I'm working on is actually AI for churches. We have a Facebook group for that, literally called AI for Churches. And you can go to AI-for-churches.com and connect with us there. We're also doing consulting, and we actually have a cohort coming up every month. So it's very affordable. It's $99 for the month. And we'll meet weekly and kind of talk through these tools and how you can use them better, and work through these things together. Cause it's going to be an interesting year. That's for sure. There's going to be something new every month.
It is. And
there's something new every day right now.
Sure is. And you need thought leaders like Katie and myself kind of at the forefront of this, speaking to these things, providing you insight and information that's going to help you navigate 2025. And like what she just mentioned, reach out to us. We'll definitely be here as a resource. Join. I'm in church communications group. You'll see me walking through there, waving at people, getting on posts or whatever have you. And, reach out to Katie, but please make sure you pay her for her time. God bless you, because we need to be paid and compensated. Hallelujah. All right. Thank y'all so much. We love y'all. Thanks to our sponsors for being a part of Social Media Church. We couldn't do this without you guys. And if you want more information like this, please come in the chat. Give us more information, more insight, and how we can do this better. We appreciate you and we love you. Thank you guys. Peace.
Thanks, DK.